Iowa State women's basketball had a conference game at home. And how'd that go? Oh, yeah, we won today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you guys that listen every day, especially through this crazy holiday season. Today, we've got mostly women's basketball to break down, and we're going to do it in three segments as we always do. First off, the win at home, just the game as a whole, what happened in this game, and what should we be looking at? Second off, how big were the turnovers in this game? Was that something that can kind of go by the wayside, or do we need to focus in on the turnovers for Iowa State women's basketball? And then finally, what's next for this women's team? Who do they face next and when? And what potentially could happen in that game? Before we get started with that, though, we obviously have to talk about the game that happened, right? So Iowa State takes on Kansas at home, first conference at home game, and Iowa State wins it. It's close game till the end, and Iowa State pulls away 78-64, 14-point win there for the Cyclones. Notable points here: Audie Crooks comes away with 33 points. Emily Ryan had 19 and her fair share, but most notably, from the three-point line, Iowa State shot 41.7%, almost 42% there. And then I think that's just 54.9% from just the field in general. So an unbelievable shooting night for the Clones, which is what we like to see. And then Kansas, honestly, they shot the three ball pretty poorly, 3 for 17. You're not going to win a ton of games with that poor of a sometimes you need the three ball. You score a lot of points when you make a lot of threes. That's just how it works. Nonetheless, Iowa State gets the win at halftime. This is a 3-point game by my math. 33-36 is what I am calculating. And so this game throughout the course of the whole thing was honestly kind of not back and forth per se, but a game in which Iowa State kind of held Kansas at about the same lead there, 4, 5, 6 points, somewhere in that range. Kansas would come make it close, and then Iowa State would get an and one and a couple extra points here and there and extend that lead and then kind of hold it there. So this was, in fact, a good game. And I mentioned this on, I think it was Wednesday. I said, this is a game that Iowa State can get. And I honestly think this is a game that they need to get. I think this is a confidence booster at home conference game. You start off 0-1 in the conference. It's going to be a tough conference. They all know this. Long rests between their last game and this one. December 21st was their last game prior to this one. With the holidays and everything. This is one you have to get. You just have to get this for momentum. And they got it. And, winning at home, something that Iowa State basketball has done in general quite a bit. Obviously, the men on like a 26-game home win streak or something along those lines. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, though I should. And the women, I saw, it was like the 24th straight non-conference. I don't know if it was straight, but a lot of non-conference undefeated seasons under Bill Fennelly. Awesome. So I was like, what is Iowa State's record at home? They're 9-0 at home right now. That's pretty good on the year. Now, granted, I went into last year and I couldn't really extend that number to a super impressive degree unless you go take the whole year. Just because it's like, well, if you take the last one, then you can't really just take the way the stats goes. I'm not trying to be like ESPN here where Iowa State's won all of their home games in which there was exactly this many attendees and this guy was calling the game and it was on a blue moon. Like, I'm not trying to do those kinds of stats. I just thought I'd keep it to this year. 9-0 at home, though, is a very impressive mark, especially, when honestly, really rough non-conference schedule. So I am now in the boat of, I think this team might be pretty solid, like pretty, really good. Watching them get blown out a couple times in the non-conference slate was like, I'm not really sure where we're at, because if it's against a top team, that's going to happen sometimes. That's just the way the cookie is going to crumble. But if you're only beating up on the bad teams, then that just leaves you in this middle of like, you're probably not a really bad team, but you're probably not one of these top tier programs right now. Where are you in there? This win to me was a booster. I think it sets that floor kind of higher up. It's a good win for the Cyclones. The Jayhawks aren't a bad team by any means. They didn't play very well. Their leading scorer had 22, Samaya Nichols, and then Ellie Evans with 12. And outside of that, it's all single digits for everyone else on the actual point front. And then, 17% from three and 38.9% from the from the field. Those aren't numbers that like jump off the page to you. But I will say, jumping off the page, like I said kind of earlier, Audie Crooks, 13 of 18 from the floor. She had 16 in the first quarter. I would say had 19 points in the first quarter. She had 16 of our 19 points. And that was in large part due to Kansas trying to go one-on-one with her. I'm not really sure how many other teams, head coaches are watching this program, but I would say this: probably shouldn't go one-on-one with Audie Crooks very often. Maybe once or maybe twice. Just not a consistent game plan that I would go with. And after the game, Audie said, "Hey, that was what Coach Fenn said that was probably going to happen. We're probably going to get the ball inside to you a lot. This is where our advantage is." And I'm surprised Kansas didn't, at the very least, make an adjustment, because Audie she looked smooth. Footwork was clean, getting to the hoop, little post move here, whatever. This time, instead of going all the way to the hoop, I'm going to fake it and then little fadeaway action. I liked it. It was everything you could have wished for out of, that true post type of game. And then we also, Brown had that 3-point, 1 for 2 from three. That's a solid number. That three kind of came at a big time too. But just a great shooting night for the Cyclones. And overall, in my opinion, a very big win. This was a much needed win going into the whole conference slate as a whole. This is going to be tough. It is going to be a hard. The Big 12 is good at basketball. Let's just leave it at that. Iowa State 10-5. I don't know where we're going to fall, but I don't think we're going to be at the top of it. And so it's going to be tough. It's going to be what do they call that? Tough sledding or uphill sledding, something along those lines. It's going to be a hard one, but it's going to prepare this team for that conference tournament at the end of the year, and then obviously hoping to make that the March Madness tournament as well, as I've said with the guys. But this one, huge win, 14-point win at home. But there were some things that I was a little bit concerned about. Certainly a little bit concerned about. We're going to have to break that down right after this. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Iowa State beat Kansas in a home conference basketball game. The women did. And great game. A lot of great things to pull from this. As I said in the first segment, I think this is absolutely a monumentous momentum win for the Cyclones, as well as we played pretty well. I'm not going to lie. That coming from Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. However, there is one thing that was mentioned in the post-game presser, and I noticed it as well. Iowa State's turnovers were a bit of an issue in this game, and I don't think it's anything we need to be super, super, super concerned about, but it's something that we can't just ignore. We can't just sweep it under the rug. I've got here under the, this is the team stats on the Iowa State website from this game. Iowa State 14 turnovers, kind of a lot there, Kansas is 13, but this was where the discrepancy kind of came to light. Iowa State with 4 steals, Kansas with 10. So 10 steals of the 14 turnovers to 4 steals of the 13 turnovers. Now, you can look at this and you can say, well, at least Iowa State isn't making mistakes, which is true. That's true. We're not throwing the ball out of bounds. We're not, 5-second violations, whatever. But I look at this and I just say that is that's a number that can go down. When it's 10 steals versus, 10 actual true turnovers to 0 steals, that number, we just need to take better care of the basketball. Okay. And as soon as Iowa State did that in this game, towards the end of the fourth quarter, we started to run away with it, And so I think that is one area in which this Cyclones team can absolutely get better. Okay. It's going to be, you can't really just go out and shoot better. Okay. You will on some nights shoot better than you will on other nights because of just basketball, right? But you can't really just say, okay, well, tonight we need to really turn up the shooting. We need to really, make a lot tonight. And then you go out and that's in your game plan and you shoot better than you have every other game. Like, that's not really how that works. If that could happen, people would just shoot 100% every night, because why would you want to shoot worse? Like, that's you know what I mean? So in the priority order of things, I wonder if maybe this is one that we move up a little bit and we say, hey, we just need to take better care of that ball. We don't want to give the other team as many points, fast break points, just true, change of possession. You're not getting any points on that offensive possession. Now they have the chance to get some. They get an extra try. When you look at the whole course of the game, the more times you get to try to score points, the better. And then obviously the more points you score, you win, right? So that's just how the game fundamentally works. And for Iowa State to be giving those away, losing opportunities to score on their side, and then giving the other team, in this case Kansas, opportunities to score more, is going to make it tough to win. And if it's 10 steals out of 14 turnovers, that means 4 of these turnovers were passes that went off of a hand, just errant passes, 5-second violations. There's all kinds of ways to commit a turnover that aren't actual steals. So 4 of those were of that category. That means 10 were given to the other team directly. And we don't want that, because that just creates so many bigger issues, especially momentum. When you get into momentum, oh my gosh, you can't even quantify that, but that's going to be a big deal too. So this is somewhere where Iowa State, 14 turnovers, let's take the 10 steals. 10 steals, that's automatically 20 points that you could have theoretically had. Maybe you make, what did we shoot? 55%, 54, 53%. So you got 10 points that you kind of just left on the board. And then how many of those turned into points for the other team? I actually don't know the number, so I'm just going to go off of, they shot, I think, like 30%, 30-something percent in this game. Or is it 38? So 40% of 20 possible, that's like 8 points. So now that's an 18-point swing in which there is a lot of wiggle room with math. But you see what I'm saying here? If Iowa State can minimize the amount of steals, just take better care of the ball, mathematically, we will have better chances to win games moving forward. Okay. And obviously we've got dogs, in Audie Crooks and Emily Ryan and all of these guys. And to be completely honest, Emily Ryan, dishing out assists right now. So it's not like we are just not passing well. Like, that's not the case. In this game, Emily Ryan had, this is the wrong site for that. Sorry. Emily Ryan had 6 assists. That's pretty solid. That was the most on the team, 6 assists. And then Addie Brown had 4, right? And I think we're doing a really good job of cleaning up on the glass as well. 34 rebounds in this game to Kansas's 27. So they also had quite a few. But I watched a lot of Audie Crooks putbacks. I'm not saying that this team is like ride or die on the turnover, and this is like something that if we don't clean it up, we're just going to lose every game. We've got an unbelievable disher in Emily Ryan in her ability to create points off of assists, and a lot of really good rebounding, because offensive rebounding wise, in this game, Iowa State had 6. That's, want to do that math. That right there's another 6 points that we potentially could have, right? So I'm not saying that it's just the turnovers. That's a big, win or lose, ride or die based on that. But this is certainly a point where I think the Cyclones can get a lot better. When you look at a game, what goes into a basketball game? What can you actually get better at? Well, like I said, shooting probably going to be pretty tough. Scheme, that goes down to the coach and the implementation, right? Defensive effort, you can pretty well do. And taking care of the ball, you can pretty well do. Those are the big 4 that come up to my brain on like what can we actually change. And I think that's just something that Iowa State can very well clean up and start to move, in the right direction as we get into the rest of these conference games and pick up more momentum. Obviously, coming off of this big win, it's big. We want that for sure, and you're going to need it against an opponent that we are going to be facing in just a few days here. But I'm going to have to break that down right after this. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games, and I can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game. Browsing through the deals was a breeze. I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as the best seat for the event. Best value. I love that I could see the seat views before buying and that the app shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Iowa State beat Kansas this last week in some conference basketball at home. And guess what? Believe it or not, they're going to play again. That is breaking news here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got to talk about upcoming game here. Facing Utah at home, Sunday, January 5th, 2025, bringing in the new year. Obviously, the Kansas game on New Year's Day. Now, what are we going to do? What are we going to do now that we've got our first win of 2025 under our belt? Hopefully, just win all the games in 2025. I mean, we're off to the right start, right? We've done one thing that we needed to do to get to that point. So, Utah, obviously at home. I mentioned 9-0 this season at home. Truly in Hilton. And this one is going to be, in my opinion, a pretty tall task for Iowa State. I will be very curious to see how this game plays out as a whole. But very gettable game. Very much a gettable game for some reason. ESPN thinks that Utah's going to win this. They have a 79% chance of winning. I don't think that's necessarily true. I looked at Utah's last couple games, played at Arizona in their last game, 69-48 win. I mean, it sounds impressive. Oh, you held Arizona to 48 points. I watched the highlights, but the highlights don't tell you the whole story. Arizona didn't score until like 2 minutes left in the third quarter after halftime, and they didn't score for the last few minutes of the second quarter. So they went on like a literal almost quarter span of not scoring a single point. So I don't know if that's a shooting struggle. I didn't get that deep into it. I just saw that graph and I was like, okay, so that's an odd game out, right? Arizona State, that their last 5 at Arizona versus Arizona State, at Washington against Princeton, and then at home against Utah State. And the ASU game, they put up 102 points. That's quite a few. I'm not going to lie. That's certainly they shoot the ball pretty well. And they flow really, really well. They have a very good feel for the court. So 102 points there, pretty impressive. They've won their last 5. So I'm not going to go super in depth on each of these games because this isn't a Utah Utes basketball show. But they're a solid program is what I'm trying to get at here, because Obviously, Iowa State coming off this win wants another. Utah is gonna. I mean, they want to win too. Believe it or not. So, um, just overall, I think this is a game that Iowa State can get. I absolutely think that they have the capability to do so. Here it is. Their team leaders. Utah has Gianna Nipkins, 18.1 points a game, and then Ines Vieira, I think it's Vieira, 6.3 assists a game. So pretty similar, honestly, to like an Emily Ryan, a couple more. But this is kind of crazy. Neepkins is shooting 50.4% from the floor. So that's something we probably should remember, going into this one. And honestly, I looked at some of their tape, and it's very much Crooks is going to have to cook. We're going to have to put it like that. I think they're undersized in the inside, and granted, the camera is like a mile and a half away, so it's kind of tough to really tell. But I do think that Crooks will have an advantage in this game on the inside. Then it's going to come down to, because I did see quite a bit of Utah taking advantage and shooting a three, and it was close when teams like a Princeton would come back and answer right away with their own three. So I honestly wonder if Iowa State, if they can get their three ball rolling in this one, that'll be big. That will be big. And I'm personally looking to Addie Brown for that. But Emily Ryan obviously can shoot the three as well as Sydney Harris, who had 2 against Kansas. And, of her 8 points, 6 of them came from threes. So overall, I think this is a very gettable game for Iowa State. Excuse me, my mouth is very dry. But this is going to be tough. Utah 2-0 in the conference and 11-2 overall. I looked at their non-conference slate. It wasn't anything crazy, but obviously played some good teams in here. I mean, you beat a Notre Dame that's ranked 3 overall, so that's obviously their biggest win. None of the other teams are ranked, but a loss to Northwestern by 2 and a loss to Mississippi State by 4. So they're going to keep it close with whoever they're playing and potentially even run away with it. I think Iowa State, obviously at home, plays a big role. Doing it, in Hilton, it's going to be big. Just the comfortability factor as well as having the fans at your back at all times. Utah has to travel. They have, unfamiliarity. I looked at the past games between Iowa State and Utah. Iowa State's website said we were 0-4 against them, and Utah's website said we were 0-1. So I'll take Utah's website. We've only played them 4 times, though, per Iowa State's website, and we had to go back to like the 80s or it was like a long time ago. And their last meeting was in 2005, and Utah won that one. So these two teams they just don't see each other a whole lot, and therefore, obviously, Utah isn't coming into Hilton Coliseum. They're going to be not uncomfortable, but just a little bit not used to it, to the locker room, to the tunnel, to the scenery, all of the amazing Cyclone fans that will be there. And so I wonder if that will help play a role. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, can Audie Crooks make a difference on the inside? And can Emily Ryan dish it to her, obviously, effectively? As we said in the second segment, I think that the turnovers, specifically steals, for the other team, is going to be big. We can't give Utah a bunch of free possessions here because they will run away with this game very quickly. They just will. I hate to break it to you. So, Iowa State, my prediction for Sunday, January 5th, 2025 against Utah at home. Give me the Cyclones in a mid-70s battle. I would take it 75-71 Cyclones. I think they pull this out, this big win. And if they can get this win, what does that mean for the program moving forward? Oh, boy, we have so much momentum. We have so much momentum. Are you kidding me? Try to pull up the rest of their schedule here. I had to go into a little bit of a rabbit hole to get it, so it's going to take me a second here. But, I mean, this is a big one for the Cyclones right here. This is what we got. Utah then at Arizona State, at Arizona, so a little bit of almost like a vacation trip there. Then you got Texas Tech at home, at West Virginia, BYU, UCF at home. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but definitely some tough teams in that list. And if Iowa State can get Utah, that's going to set us up real nicely for that road trip. And then obviously Texas Tech at home. And then West Virginia currently ranked 18. Kansas State way down the road at the end of January ranked 12th. And then back-to-back against TCU, who will be ranked 11th. This one will be big, though. Utah not ranked, but I think they're a very good program, very good team. We're going to have to minimize turnovers, get it into Crooks, and shoot the three ball well. And we can take this home. Well, it'll be at home, but, even more home, maybe to the apartment. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.